So another really great question that was asked of me was, who made God? If God made everything in the universe, then who made God? Now this is a really interesting question because it supposes that there was an originator, someone who put all this in place. And that makes sense. When we see the complexity in the universe, in nature, in the way things are finely tuned, it does speak to an intelligent and creative being behind all of that. Things like this just don't randomly happen. Imagine going into a wrecking yard and exploding a bomb and having a brand new McLaren P1 pop out. Finely tuned, beautiful, just like we can see all of nature beautiful and finely tuned. Things like that just don't happen randomly. Okay, so let's get back to this who made God thing. So, the Bible tells us that God came from everlasting and will be for everlasting, which is a way of saying he exists outside of time and space. So, at one point, there wasn't time, there wasn't space, and there wasn't matter. All scientists will agree on that. So at some point they all came into existence. So God, who is in charge of making all of that, had to exist outside of that. So he exists in what we refer to as the eternal state, where time, space, and matter don't have any bearing. He has to. He can't exist in this space in order to create this space. So that's just a logical thing. But if he's always existed, that kind of stretches our minds. Like, our human minds aren't really able to grasp the infinite, the everlasting. To us, something always had to have a beginning. But God says, I've always been. And I've always been perfect. I've always been in three. And what he did was that he made this universe for a purpose. And this is why we can know that no one made God, because his purposes are pure and true and good and will have an ending. So with this universe, there was a beginning, we're in the middle kind of part, and there will be an ending to it. So that's how we understand the universe, beginning, middle, and end. For God, there never was. But what he recognized is that when he made us, he knew this was going to happen. He knew that we would rebel against him. We would do things that we want to do and that were against his moral standard. He refers to this as sin. So what would happen is we sin, and that separates us from God, who cannot exist with sin. His perfect being doesn't allow sin in his presence. So the moment we start doing the things that we know are wrong, we have lost the ability to go to be with him in the eternal state beyond this universe. That kind of sucks. And here's the suckier part. It's common to all people, every single person on this planet from all of eternity. And that separates us from God. So we're all in the same boat. So what happens? God, who exists out of time and space, said, I can take care of this. See, we can't pay for the bad things that we've done. It's beyond our capacity. This stuff is too great. God says the wages of sin is death, eternal death. And that is separation from him in the eternal place. Okay, so let's keep going with this idea of who created God. Well, nobody, and he's always been. So why did he create us? Because he wanted to create for himself a people. But he didn't want automatons. What he wanted was people who would be with him for all of eternity, to love him and be loved by him. And it's perhaps the greatest gift anyone could give is this free choice, because you cannot get people to love you if you just mandate it. You can't mandate love. All you can do is put people in a place and let them choose. And if we choose to love God, then there's a possibility. So what he had to do was he had to come himself. He decided right at the outset that he was going to come and live among us and then pay the penalty that we couldn't pay. So for death, it had to come with his death. And Jesus said, to prove that he was God, that I have the ability to put down my life, no one takes it from me, but I also have the ability to pick up my life. And he did that. So his death on the cross 2,000 years ago paid the price that you and I could not pay. And then he picked it up. He rose to life again. He resurrected on the third day so that we could have new life in him. But we have to believe this. We have to believe that he's God. We have to confess it. We have to say that we understand that Jesus is God and that his death paid for the penalty for our sin. It's really simple. God doesn't require a lot. And when we recognize what Jesus has done for us, the love just comes naturally. So I'm hoping that answers a bunch of questions, but also gives us some purpose and meaning to why we're here. All right. I think I've got more videos to make. Anyway, thank you. And keep asking questions. If you want to put questions in the comments section, please do. That'd be fantastic.